Moving to our next session of this morning, we have the privilege of having Mr. Dheeraj Choudhary, a lead engineer and expert in continuous delivery, and he will be talking about streamlining continuous delivery with Spinnaker, best practices and real-world use cases.
So Mr. Dheeraj has vast experience and expertise in cloud technology and automation. So we are really excited to learn from you, sir. So without any further ado, please give a huge round of applause for Mr. Dheeraj.
If you want, I can bring my laptop. Yes. Quick. Working? Yes.
Handle it from there. You can do slideshow.
Hello guys, good morning. So nice to have you all here, and I am happy to have that opportunity to present in front of the GDG community. So thank you so much, GDG Cloud team, for the same. So today I would be speaking upon one specific tool. This tool comes under the DevOps domain. So anybody over here who has worked on to Spinnaker? Only one. That's going to be difficult for me to then. Anyways, so Spinnaker is actually a continuous delivery and continuous deployment tool. So this specific tool, I'm not sure, it's not that popular, but there was an era at that time, it was very popular. The reason for that is it was supporting multi-cloud deployment and delivery. Now, moving forward, before I get started with Spinnaker, I will just introduce myself. I am Dheeraj Choudhary. I am working as a lead development engineer with 10 plus years of experience. And I'm working at EPAM Systems. So over there, I work onto a DevOps project, cloud project, and I also take care of communities into EPAM, where all the DevOps communities and AWS communities for India is been handled by me. Apart from that, I am also a HashiCorp ambassador and lead organizer for HashiCorp along with AWS User Group Pune. So that is a bit of my introduction. Now getting started with Spinnaker. So what actually we are going to cover today is we are going to cover 4 important points. That is the evolution and overview of Spinnaker. Why we have to understand that? Because as you can see that very less people are aware of what exactly this tool is. So let's start with some overview and how this tool came into picture, who has developed it, and who all are using it. So that will give you a glimpse of what exactly this tool is capable of. So after that, we will see some key features and benefits for this specific Spinnaker tool. And I will drive you through a very small use case. It would be a continuous deployment use case that you will push your code onto GitHub and how it will take your code, how it will create your artifacts, how it will push that artifacts to a repository, how it will fetch that artifacts back, and it will deploy it onto a multi-cloud environment, and what kind of orchestration tool it behaves like, where you can actually monitor all the workloads that you're deploying onto multiple clouds. So for example, if you're deploying your workloads, 3 applications on 3 different clouds, that is AWS, Azure, and Google. So how you can do the application management for all these multi-cloud deployments that you are going to use. So by getting started, so Spinnaker is an open source tool which is used for deployment and continuous delivery. Now, this specific tool was developed by Netflix. So Netflix is still using this specific tool for multi-cloud deployment. So in 2015, after this tool was developed, it was released as an open source tool in 2015. After which you can see there are n number of contributors for this open source tools. All the major cloud providers, AWS, Azure, Oracle Cloud, and there are many more who are shaking hands with this open source tool in terms of collaboration so that it can bring up more value to the people who are looking for multi-cloud deployment. So what exactly the main idea behind this tool is to bring the ease towards the people who want to do continuous delivery and deployment for multi-cloud. So how it helps is, as it is cloud agnostic, day by day it is adding multiple clouds for the support so that you can do deployment. Apart from that, it also supports Kubernetes, which is nowadays, on a boom that every company nowadays is moving to Kubernetes based on the workloads that they have, because in last few years, there has been a gradual increase, a tremendous increase in terms of applications. And now companies have understood that if they want to expand on a global level, they have to move ahead from the monolith application to a microservices application, and they have to segregate their workloads onto multiple cloud environments. So moving forward, so who all are using Spinnaker? So if you can see, these are all the companies who are listed over here. These all companies are at the current moment using Spinnaker. And apart from this, there are AWS, Azure, Google Cloud. Google Cloud is also having a summer code program, which is associated with this specific open source tool, where a lot of opportunities are provided to the people who want to contribute onto this specific program. Now, moving forward to the key features of Spinnaker. So it is having a role-based access control. What I mean by that is, whenever you are using any tool, the first and foremost priority for you is security. So this tool is capable of integrating with OAuth, SAML, and different authentication mechanism that is being offered. So if you see the authentication mechanism from Azure, that has been supported, from Google Cloud, that has been supported. Same is for AWS also. Now, the second point that you can see over here is CI integrations. So how it is, what kind of offering it will provide you is, as part of CI integration, it's tightly integrated with Jenkins and Travis CI. So whatever events which are being triggered onto your GitHub while you're pushing your code from the development branch to the production branch, it has that capability to monitor that event. Based on that, it also has a capability to trigger the pipeline, by using which you can deploy your workloads. Now, third important thing is CLI. So as a developer, you guys know that how important CLI is, be it any cloud or be it any technology. It is very easy for us to write automations if we have a CLI in place, where we can run a specific CLI command by using that library of CLI as part of our layer or as part of our package, and it does the work seamlessly. So this supports CLI, and this CLI is capable of setting up a Spinnaker cluster, doing some admin functionalities for Spinnaker. So for example, if you're creating clusters, you have to destroy that. If you're creating server groups, you have to destroy that. If you have some firewall, you have to change the firewall settings, you can do that. So all these things are appropriately covered by this CLI tool. And the CLI tool, CLI setup that it has, so it is known as Heliad. If you search for Heliad Spinnaker, over there you will see all the supported CLI commands for this specific Spinnaker tool. Now moving towards the deployment strategy. So this was one of the, one of the first-hand tools which came up with the deployment strategy of blue-green deployment, rolling blue-green deployment, and canary deployments. So I will cover that in details, that how these different types of deployments actually work and what are the changes it has. We will compare all three of them one by one. I have a specific diagram for that where I will explain you. Now moving towards manual judgments. So whenever we are creating a pipeline into Spinnaker, in Spinnaker, when we go from one stage to another, or when you come to a stage where all the things are done. For example, building artifacts, testing it. So all test, artifact, and wait is done. After that, if you want it to be deployed on the production environment, and if you need some manual approvals to be added over there, you can configure that too as part of your pipeline. Or you can also add a wait state for that approval before deploying it to the production environment. Now, in terms of notification, it is tightly integrated with all the notification mechanism with the help of Twilio, where it supports Slack's email notifications. So why these notifications are required? So for example, if you're building a pipeline for Spinnaker, and if you want to notify if one stage is getting completed, or if any job is getting failed, or if you have to trigger an email notification in terms of testing is completed on the test environment, now they would be moving on to the another step. So all these email notifications are tightly integrated, and it is very easily configurable from the console itself. That is the dashboard of Spinnaker. So I will also show you that specific dashboard where you will get a glimpse of what exactly this specific tool can do and what are the capabilities for the same. Now coming to the last and very important feature is VM Bakery. Spinnaker comes tightly integrated with Packer, because of which you can bake your VM images that you would require for your deployments. So that is one of the very good feature. So moving towards the next part, now let's understand the core functionalities of Spinnaker. Now, Spinnaker is usually used from both the part. One is application management and one is application deployment. Now, let's see from the application management perspective how it is helpful for you. So, if you see in this diagram, so from application management perspective, just understand this analogy that the application management for Spinnaker is distributed into 4 segments. One is the application, another is the cluster, third is the server group. So these are the 3 main analogy or key pointers that we use to differentiate or to monitor the applications. So for example, if you see in the example over here, there are 2 applications. Suppose first application is on Google Cloud and second is on AWS Cloud. So these 2 are segregated in terms of applications. So application is the segregator for that. Now, once you are creating that, there are different clusters that you can create. These are not Kubernetes clusters. These are the analogy of Spinnaker. So don't get confused between Kubernetes clusters and the analogy of Spinnaker. So you can again segregate this. Why we are segregating this? Because the server groups are is an analogy under which all your resources or your images, Docker images, VM images, all these things comes under this, which is configurable. So under server group, all these things that we have to manage comes in, but to segregate that into different sections so that it is easy for you to understand that which cluster is doing what. So you can also segregate it based on the functionalities or based on your environments that you are building, dev test, prod, or some other analogy that you have at your end. And after that, whenever you have a server group, that server group, suppose if you have 2 to 3 server groups, there is a load balancer which is available, which would be used to route your traffic. Or if you're doing a deployment, if you're doing a blue-green deployment, so if you have an immutable infrastructure that needs to be deployed, at that time also, you can use this analogy of server groups. You can keep the production at one end, and you can keep the pre-prod at another end. You can perform your blue-green deployment, and as part of that deployment, you can shift the workloads based on the output it is giving to the latest version that you're deploying to your production server. Now, this is one of the example of the console of Spinnaker. So over here, you can see that there are 3 things mentioned over there on the top menu. That is pipelines, clusters, and tasks. So task comes as part of your pipeline stage management that I will come after this. But right now you can focus on the cluster part. So over here, whatever clusters you are creating, you can see everything over here. The replicas, the horizontal pod scaling, the auto scaling, whatever you have configured for the server groups that you have defined, everything. Apart from that, on the right-hand side, you can see the load balancers, security group, and the configuration settings that you have to configure for your server groups that you have. So now moving forward to application deployment. So I was speaking about three different ways of deployment that it is providing you. So the first is blue-green deployment. So let me give an example for the first one. So in blue-green deployment, what exactly we are doing is, on the left-hand side, you can have a version of 1.0, which is the older version. And on the right-hand side, you can have the newer version, that is 2.0. So as part of blue-green deployment, what we do is, so a 2.0 would be the pre-prod, which would be an exact replica on production. So you can deploy this to different immutable infrastructures onto different server groups, and you can start routing your traffic gradually onto the other one, looking at the response of that specific application. So that you can do by using blue-green deployment. So that is known as blue-green deployment. Now, in terms of rolling blue-green deployment, you can see that the same thing is happening, but gradually, whatever new applications that you have, it is automatically getting added one by one. If you see in the second diagram on the right-hand side, the green side, it is automatically deploying the latest version of application onto that based on the output of the traffic that the people are coming in, and based on the testing which has been performed for the new application which has been deployed. Now, talking about the third one, which is widely used into industries now, that is a canary deployment. So canary deployment is the advanced one. The reason for that is there are some canary analysis which goes into picture. So this specific deployment is basically focused on the traffic that is coming in, the quality of that traffic, to which we are catering the packages or the new application we are deployed, the amount of connections it is creating, the timeouts that has been faced. So all these parameters you can define as part of your canary analysis, based on which it will decide whether it has to shift the load or not. So that is the three deployment mechanism that it offers, and it is very seamless for you to configure. Now, from this deployment strategies, I have covered canary and blue-green deployment. Custom stages for verification as part of deployment. In this, custom stages means you can automate that stages in terms of sending a notification onto Slack or Teams or onto email notification to get the approval. That would be a custom stage for verification. And when you go in the console, you also have an option. So for example, if I'm running a pipeline as part of my deployment, and that deployment is not successful, so so you have a functionality where you can roll back the specific code into one click. So that is again one of the features that it provides as part of the console that you're using. And the last one is the approval gates. So approval gates are usually used for the manual judgment that I spoke about in the first slide, where you can have your manual approvers for which, based on whose approval, you can go ahead with the production deployment. Now, this is just a glimpse of what exactly the pipeline is, but I will explain you the second diagram is very important. So I spoke about stages. So in stages, you can define multiple steps. And under this multiple sets, there can be multiple tasks. So for example, if you see over here, we are doing a blue-green deployment, and under that, I have created a pipeline for blue-green deployment. Under that, we have steps. I have defined 4 steps. And if you go to the third step, under that step, I have written around 7 tasks. So these all 7 tasks are associated with disable cluster. The same way you can write different tasks for the different steps that you are going to configure as part of the pipeline that you are configuring for your continuous delivery and deployment. So that is the beauty of it. And under this task, whatever operation you are performing, you can configure that also seamlessly. So these all things are very, I do understand it is very close to people who are doing continuous delivery and deployment as part of their DevOps role. So which is actually used on the daily basis. So that is the reason this specific tool is very powerful in terms of deployment onto a multiple cloud. And apart from this, as I said, if you see on the top, there is cutover manual approval. So you can have a wait state added if you want to put a cutover and wait for an approver to approve it for 30 minutes, or you can expand it also based on the requirement that you have. And once your infrastructure is been deployed totally onto the green side, from the blue side, you can tear down the blue infrastructure because that would be cost saving for you. What is immutable implementation? Immutable infrastructure means you are not actually deploying the application onto the existing one. You're creating entire new application servers. What you're doing is you're just routing the traffic. So when the older version is not required, you can remove that specific infrastructure and you can do a lot of cost saving. That also you can define as part of your deployment pipeline that you are configuring as part of this specific Spinnaker tool. Now moving forward, so this is example of the pipeline. So over here, whenever you're creating a job, you can see seamlessly you can understand that what exactly next stage is going to do. The same way, you can, if you're writing any specific stage, you can copy that stage directly by using a copy existing stage. You can add a stage seamlessly. After that, if you want to add some configuration, so for example, I was talking about one-click rollback. So if you see over here, if the stage fails, what action we have to take. So you don't have to write or develop something or write a script. There are multiple options that have been present over here. You can select from this, and you can also restrict executions, override default timeout that I was talking about. And if you want to customize, you can also use your custom expressions. By using that, you can do a rollback. So this is the, and at the end, you can see the notification also. So you can add your default notification method in the configuration part, and afterwards you can just click on this checkbox. It will utilize that specific configuration method, notification method for you. But if you don't want to do that, you can have your custom one also defined at the time of creating the Spinnaker pipeline to deploy it onto multiple cloud. Now moving forward to the benefits. So as part of this continuous deployment, what exactly happens is the applications are released very fast. So the time to market is very quick. So nowadays, if you see, previously when we were working into companies, we were working onto the feature for 6 months, and after that it was going to get released. So there was a gap. But right now it is not like that. So people have broken their monolithic application into microservices, segregated all of them at different, as per their different niche that they're going to perform or the functionalities. And as soon as any update is required in terms of security or in terms of defect fix, bug fix, immediately a code is created, it is tested by using the pipeline, and it is directly pushed to the production. So that is how it helps you to, it has faster time to market. Now multiple cloud deployment flexibility, as I said, till now, as per my understanding, there are 5 to 6 clouds it is supporting. That is AWS, Azure, then Google Cloud, then there is Oracle Cloud. There is few more clouds that also it supports. If you go to the official documentation of Spinnaker, you can find it over there. Now, the most important benefit that I think is the deployment strategies for risk mitigation. So what is risk mitigation? Anyone? Okay, so risk mitigation is whenever you're deploying, so there is always a risk associated with the business critical applications that you have to take care of. So for risk mitigation, there are different options that you have. If you go to the official website of Spinnaker, you will see how you can mitigate the risk by using the pipeline which has been deployed that you have created, and what are the options available for the risk mitigation. Now in terms of scalability and resilience, so I showed you one specific diagram where server group supports auto scaling, server group supports timeouts. So all these things are already taken care of. So for example, if you have your instances spun up onto AWS, that is an EC2 instance, and if that instance is going down, it also takes care of the replica sets. So if one instance is not available, it will create a new one. So the replica is always maintained based on the requirement, minimum base requirement of your application to be run. So moving to the last slide. So that's a use case, but I guess I have only, I don't have any time left, but yes, can I cover it in 2 minutes? Yeah, okay. So that's a small use case that you can see. So on the right-hand side, extreme right-hand side, you can see that is the Spinnaker flow that we would be speaking about. So in the start, I told you that it is tightly integrated with Jenkins. So in this example, you can see that whenever a code is pushed to GitHub, Jenkins pull for the changes. Once the changes are pulled, automatically those changes are been associated with Spinnaker. It will trigger the pipeline that you have created for continuous deployment. What that pipeline will do, it will run the Jenkins job. for stage, then it will create the package out of it. It will push it to S3 bucket. After pushing it to S3 bucket, it will bake the VM that you have to use for. Then it will deploy that to the server groups in the cluster. Once it is deployed to the server groups in the cluster, then you can see the blue-green deployment are being performed over here. Old would be the previous ones, and new would be the new ones. So you can do in different ways. Canary, you can do in blue-green. If you want to keep it immutable implementation, you can do it in that way. So all these things you can do by using Spinnaker pipeline. So I guess that's it from my end. So thank you guys. I know we are running short of time. So if you have any queries, I am available till the end of this event. So I am sitting over here. You can come out to me at any time, ask your queries, and I would be happy to help you. So thank you so much for hearing me out.
Hello. Thank you, Dheeraj sir, for sharing your experience and best practices in streamlining continuous delivery with Spinnaker. Your session has been truly insightful and has provided us with valuable guidance for optimizing our software delivery pipelines. Before this session, I had no idea about Spinnaker. Thank you so much for introducing this technology to me. You explained features, use cases brilliantly.
And we really appreciate your expertise and dedication to empower and come here and talk to us. On behalf of our team, we would like to felicitate you, and for that I would really like to request Mr. Swapnil to be on the stage. So ladies and gentlemen, are you enjoying so far?